7 o'clock. We'll call this meeting, joint meeting of the Select Board and School Committee to order. Yeah, is there anything that you guys need to do to kick things off?
We are also calling the meeting to order, I guess.
Okay. We have a couple announcements just quickly before we start. Just a friendly reminder, second quarter tax bills are due Monday, November 3rd. These were mailed with the first quarter bills back in July. If you have any questions, please contact the Treasurer Collector's Office at 508-839-5335, extension 1340. The Economic Development Commission will host a business networking event on Wednesday, November 5th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Grafton Public Library. As a special guest speaker, Kevin Quiros, the Central Mass Regional Director from the Office of Business Development, will share insights and resources available through state programs to help local businesses expand, relocate, and thrive. This event is also an opportunity to mingle, exchange ideas, and build relationships with fellow Grafton business owners and professionals. Then the next night, the Affordable Housing Trust will host a forum at the Community Barn on Thursday, November 6th from 6:30 to 8. Learn how housing supports a community from guest speakers from Massachusetts Housing Partnership and the Citizens Housing and Planning Association. Okay, so welcome everybody to our joint meeting. Thank you all for coming together tonight, getting this first one in the books and kicked off. Gonna pass things over to Evan and Jay. Evan has some slides he's going to walk us through. Then I figured we could do some general QA between us, and then open it up to any public comments or questions after that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just before we kick off the kickoff slideshow, we do not have a fully developed budget, so that's not what this is. I just want to set expectations before we start going. This is more or less about revenue projection. And what we can expect to have for funds coming in. We'll also go over kind of just the state of the town a little bit, based off of last year's numbers and into what we can expect moving forward. So that being said, we do have a lot of environmental budget pressures coming in. Namely, probably chiefly is health insurance costs. So we continue to work with our Public Employee Committee to try to make some health insurance decisions that would benefit the town and the schools. We'll go into those in a little bit deeper detail a little bit later. Obviously, we always run into the same thing at the beginning of the budget year, which is what is state aid going to do? What's Chapter 70 going to look like? What is our cost per pupil going to be? Flexible state aid, which we refer to as UGA, which is unrestricted government aid. That's always up in the air as we move into this budget season. And then I pulled two quotes from a MMA report that I had sent out, and I think Jay also shared with the school committee ahead of time, that just kind of details some of the budget pressures that we're looking at, where they talk about the substantial new investments in education that have gone predominantly to urban areas and gateway towns and have not really shown benefit to the rural or suburban towns. And if you look at what the definition of a suburban town is, Grafton fits right into it as far as what the income brackets look like. We also see, and we've talked about this for years, is the 2.5% cap, known as Prop 2.5, which leaves suburban towns like Grafton, if they are short on funding, with expensive and temporary options like overrides. Those are two bullet points pulled directly out of that document. If you haven't read it, I really suggest you do it. It is a very well prepared brief on what we're looking at. So as we move into the budget, we continue to have our AA stable rating. We are looking to get re-rated probably around July of 26 by the time we actually get in front of a board. And we think that we may see a shift upwards, hopefully. Mainly based on our OPEB changes that we've been making. So the board enacted an OPEB policy. We've changed our financial approach. And so we reduced our liability from 66 million to 46 million, which is a 30% decrease and a $20 million savings throughout the program. We are now funded at a little over $1 million, almost 1.1 million, which is a 132% increase from 2023. And the percentage of funding is actually 230% increase since 2023. So that's pretty fantastic. We're definitely trending in the right direction. And we're going to start to see some of those benefits pay off in things like our bond rating and our ability to do other business. Our stabilization accounts, so we have almost 5.2 million in our general stabilization account. Our free cash was certified this fall at 6.8 million. We did spend 600,000 at town meeting in the fall. It was already allocated to be taken out, but it would have been taken out prior to to certification instead of post certification. So it's the same amount of money. It's just on two sides of the certification. And then we allocated the $425,000 for the roof. So after those two, we're heading into spring with about 5.65-ish million to look at. And we will take roughly a third of that number, and that's what we'll use to start our budgeting process. Little lag there. So our fiscal 26 levy was about 53 million. You can see we're going up to about 55,679,000. Our Prop 2.5 increase that we're looking at for this year is 1,391,000, and it is early days, but we think we're going to peg new growth at $1 million. So last year we did 963 or 964, something like that, and we came in at 1.2 million. So looking at trends of what we're seeing in the residential sector as well as some commercial development that we have coming online, we think that $1 million is a reasonable approach. Yeah, so an interesting point to make just on that vein is that if you remember, we presented a budget last year that had $0 of capacity, which means we took every penny that we saw. But we're a little conservative on revenue and we're a little conservative on new growth. And we ended the year, when the year closed out, with about $200,000 of capacity, which sounds like a lot of money, but in an $80 million budget is not a ton of money. But it shows you that we are doing it correct, because if we're saying we're going to have $0 left, but we're conservative in our estimates, we come up a little bit better than that, that we've hit our target of what we're trying to do. As we look at health insurance coming up in this budget year, we're reminded that we increased by about 18% last year in our health insurance. That was an increase of roughly $800,000. However, it does not appear that 18% increase was sufficient, because we are currently in deficit by $950,000. We do think that deficit is going to be reduced. To what extent, we're not entirely sure. We're working through that right now. But the reason that we feel that it'll be reduced is that we do have things like stop loss insurance and RX rebates and some other cash positive elements out there that have not been realized. They lag behind the claims data. So we do feel like we're owed a significant chunk of money. We don't think we'll get to zero, but we also don't think it's 950,000. So we're working through that, getting that data to be matched up through Harvard Pilgrim or HPI is a bit of a challenge, and so we're working on that currently. So we need to keep that in mind, because that money has to come from somewhere, and it's likely a free cash request coming into the fall that we need to account for. Lastly, as we start coming into new discussions, we're going to carry about a 15% increase. That's an increase of roughly $1 million at this point, by the time it all nets out. And so the reason that we're going to carry a 15% increase is one that we're unsure where we're going to end up. We're thinking we're going to end up in the GIC. These are still conversations that are going on. The benefit that we see from moving to the GIC is that let's say that we were going to have a 15% increase in the health group that we're in now. If that 15% isn't enough, because our loss ratio gets worse, we run a deficit that we're on the hook for. If you're in the GIC and we also had a 15% increase, which is, not great, but it exists, and we come in worse off, we should have done a 20%. We're not on the hook for any of that deficit spending. It all gets absorbed in the aggregate. So what that brings us, if we can move in that direction, is budget certainty, right? So if the number we put $6.8 million out there for insurance, that's the number. That's it. We're not coming back. There's no second bite of the apple. Nothing shifts. If we stay where we are, or we go into a free market situation, we may be faced with this again. And so this isn't really for us. I've also been speaking with town administrators throughout the Commonwealth that have a much better loss ratio than we have. They're in the low 80s. And they're being told to budget a 15% increase. And our net ratio is well over 100%, sometimes as high as 124%. So what that tells me is that 15% is probably ish where we're going to end up. But it's a good probably starting point as far as where we're going to jump off from. All right. Yes.
Just to clarify, so last year we did an 18% increase and it went up by that, and still we are in the negative to the tune of a greater amount than that. Okay.
So one of the interesting things, well, depends on what I find interesting, interesting for a town administrator, I guess, is that we went out to bid last year. We did an RFP to try to solicit a lower cost option for the town. We only got one respondent. That one respondent was Blue Cross, and they were looking to take us on at a 28.7% increase from what we're paying today. Now, if you take that number and look at where we are, that was probably the right number. Real tough pill to swallow. But when you look back at where Grafton has been since about 2018 when it came out of the GIC, where we were from 2014 to 2018, we were likely underfunded almost that entire time, because you can see us just bumping up against the limit with our loss ratio and kind of skimming by the skin of our teeth. And now, not only are we marginally underfunded, but we're also seeing significant increases because of A, what's happening in health insurance in general, and B, our tremendously unfavorable loss ratio. So that's what's going to really drive those costs. And we are going to have some further discussions. We're going to try to get our insurance consultant to come in to one of the select board meetings to talk about it. We did have probably one of our final PEC meetings last week. That's kind of, we think we're starting to head towards consensus that stability is going to be key. Okay. Any other? Well, we can circle back. Other environmental challenges that we're looking at or changes. Our pension liability has been hovering around 9.7, 9.5, 9.8%. So that's what we're going to anticipate similar in fiscal 27. And if it comes in lower, great. So last year that 9.7% was about $375,000. Blackstone Valley, we don't know what our numbers are going to look like. We don't usually know till around March-ish, February, sometimes if they give us a heads up. So last year some pretty favorable numbers, but that doesn't guarantee us anything in this budget cycle. Staff salaries, we do have union contractual increases, steps and COLAs. Those are built in. And then we have a tremendous amount of federal and state government uncertainty right now, just sign of the times. We're dealing with inflation rates that hit the municipal sector pretty hard. We're starting to see some tariff and manufacturing cost issues. We saw this before, mostly on the capital side. The last time we did the tariff route, steel went up and fire trucks got 25% more expensive overnight, And so we're keeping a very close eye on that as we move into the capital season, as well as when we're looking for things that we buy on a regular recurring basis, such as salt, other usable items, not usable. Consumables. Thank you. Everybody knew consumables but me. And then we are starting to see a loss of grant opportunities. Nothing really catastrophic for the town of Grafton yet. But we are seeing other communities in our local area that are either getting grant money clawed back, or the loss of entire segments of grants in general. So the way I see next steps, like that, it's a hyperlapse shot of the comment. This is what I do when I can't sleep at night, is try to figure out how to get that to come into.
Did you really capture the traffic though?
I did. Wait, no, don't pull me off track. I got a whole thing about this. I'm working on something. So we need to finalize our budget requests. We need that to get wrapped up pretty quickly here. We need to tighten up what our asks are, so that we can then come back to this group, school committee, finance committee, present the forecast, and submit our finalized budget. With the caveat, and I think we've talked this to death, but that the finalized budget in November is probably not going to be what the actual finalized budget looks like in May, right? Because things are going to happen as we go through this process, and things are going to happen in the environment that we can't control, and we're going to have to adjust as we go. So that is all I have prepared for this evening, and I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Somebody want to kick us off with questions, comments? Crickets.
I have a question, just to go back now to that, so relative to the health insurance, so the 28% would have, what does the 950 plus the 800 come out to be percentage wise? Is that what we're looking at, like in terms of an increase?
I'm sorry, the 950 plus. Let me go back to that slide.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. Which
So it was 800,000 is what we came under,
yes.
or we did the 18% to recoup that. We're still negative 950. So what is that percentage? Is that how I'm looking at it? The
Yeah.
percentage increase last year all
Correct.
in is
I did not do the math on between percentage and
like
that.
40% or something?
Yeah, it's gonna be close to 40.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one thing. And then relative to BVT, and I guess I can bring this up. I assume that Jay, you're doing a presentation of sorts too. No. Never mind.
Would be an
I don't know. I didn't get a lot of information on this, but I just wonder if is Mr. Yitz is still, I think, our person there. Does he or anyone come into you guys prior to March? I mean, I look for agendas. There's nothing since I think June was the last posted agenda for them, because I've had it on my docket for myself to go to one of those meetings or try to get more information in terms of that budget. And when the slide said it's relative to enrollment, when you look at the way it's skewed, right? I took copious notes last year about this, but so I just wondered if we, that comes up and we go to town meeting and we say yes, which is fine. BVT, it's a great asset. I understand all that, but it's a big chunk. I mean, last year, was it like 1.3 or thereabouts, 1.4? It was kind of what the nut was that we were trying to look at to, to reduce our budget. So just some more oversight there, or some more feedback from them, or that we can give feedback, I suppose. And I guess along those lines, where are we, do you know, in the voting for that budget? Like, are we near the end where it doesn't really matter almost, our town meeting, or do you know?
I don't know. I
Okay.
can find out. There's been new leadership there.
Yes,
So
I know.
I'm happy to
Yeah.
look into the timing.
And
the
maybe that's why
implications.
there isn't an agenda yet. I know
Yeah,
that he just
maybe.
came in. Yep. Okay,
I can reach out to him.
great.
If I remember correctly, in talking to Dr. Fitzpatrick, we're probably in the last third of town meetings that vote, because he and I had a side conversation last year about it being towards the end of his roadshow. So
Okay.
Doesn't really matter if we vote no, right? I mean, if enough towns vote yes, we're
Depends on where we are
obligated to.
in that.
So it's
yeah, I mean at a certain point, but we don't know what we don't know as far as what other towns are doing too. So you kind of gotta.
yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Chair. Through you. So The loss ratio seems like a key metric for insurance, obviously, and we don't want to be discouraging people from using their health insurance, but is there anything that we can do proactively to work on the loss ratio?
Yep. And so we are doing some of that currently. It is difficult to get the data out of organizations like HPI and Harvard Pilgrim in a way that is manageable for you, the town, to break that data apart. What we are not seeing is what other towns are seeing, which is an uptick of mental health resource utilization during COVID and post-COVID. That's not what's driving our loss ratio. Our loss ratio is almost entirely made up of a couple of big claims, but also just standard outpatient utilization. Just a lot of utilization for a myriad of different things. We also see the same impact that other communities see, which is the GPL1s. And there's some work being done around that. We're actually, with our current group, GPL1s are going to probably undergo a change of how you can get them and what they're prescribed for. So you can still get them prescribed for diabetes. And if you are prescribed them for health-related weight concerns, there's a program that you have to stay within. So it has monthly check-ins and all there's a whole I don't go into the whole program. It's a big program, but it goes through all these different steps to ensure that you're working the program as well as receiving the drug, because GPL1s cost us about $1,000 a month per user, and that adds up quick, right? So that's also driving that. We are on the I think you'll see everybody, GIC, Blue Cross, everybody's kind of hitting that tipping point right now with the GPL ones. The other thing that we had done to try to reduce some of our outlay of costs is we got rid of the indemnity plans, because indemnity plans they're great if you're the employee, and I we're cognizant of that. But indemnity plans give you a very wide berth to choose your path for wellness. But what happens is you can get on a GPL1 or similar medication through a HIMSS or a HERS.com or any of those with really a low barrier to entry. And so that's what we saw just explode, especially in the indemnity plans, is that people were able to shop for treatment. And so we reduced or got rid of pretty much your access to those. As something we're carrying moving forward to try to decrease our loss ratio that was being driven by those plans. So it's a big topic, but we also we've introduced apps, we've introduced all these different resources for employees to gain access to try to help drive healthier metrics, right? Things around diabetes, weight, heart conditions, mental health. All these lower cost kind of approaches that are both proactive and maybe even technology based. We see a lot of, we can start offering some telehealth stuff for your normal kind of doctor interactions. And we're just not seeing a huge benefit from those currently. But,
Well, thanks for doing that. And there's a lot of factors that are not in our control. That's one that at least we have some influence on to some extent.
We have worked as a group with the Mass Strategic Health Group quite a bit on trying to reduce costs, get frugal where we can, try to drive health outcomes where we can, and it has been successful to a certain degree. I hear it from employees that have access to things that they're appreciative of and think that it's driving better health outcomes for them. But in the aggregate, I don't know, it's hard to prove what you would have paid if the person didn't make a healthy choice.
Yeah.
Especially with where we are as far as what our general outcomes are. Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure.
Can you speak more to what caused that deficit that we're currently dealing with?
Yeah, so what caused that deficit is we owe more money than we're giving them. Essentially. Yep. Essentially, the underpinning is that, you know, we figured out that 18%, or that's what the consultants figured out. So I think, let me back up. I think two things. One is that our first year in Mass Strategic Health Group, we had a 4% increase. And that 4% increase was offset a little bit by a little bit of a surplus that we had because of our RX rebates and our stop loss. And so we were able to keep that rate kind of stable for the employees and for the residents. But in reality, instead of taking a 4% as a positive outcome, we probably should have been at a 10% or a 12%. And I don't think we got the best advice through MSHG at that time. And there's a lot of communities that are in that same boat. We've now switched leadership or consulting leadership at Mass Strategic, which I think is more realistic, which is how we came to that 18%. But that 18% was really based on us being probably too optimistic about where our loss ratio would be, and the number of high cost claims that we thought would roll off that haven't. That's a big portion of your driver. It's probably not all of it. We still just continue to have a pretty high utilization rate. Our September number was 82% loss ratio, which is great. It's about probably where we want to be. But I actually don't think that's right. I think it's just that our claims data lags behind. So I just don't think it's all in there because it doesn't make any sense considering our other outliers or our other data. So, I mean, maybe we've just turned a corner and everybody was like, no more doctor for me. We're good. But I doubt that to be the case. So I think it's all, I think you've got insurance sector is just tremendously volatile right now. You're hearing it everywhere. We were probably too conservative with an 18% increase, which is absolutely bananas. And, you know, I just don't think that there's, I don't know. I'm worried about what our alternative is besides, you know, moving into a more budget stable organization. So, Mr. Alamo.
So,
Sorry,
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Alamo.
Thank you. So you're just cautioning us. This is a lot more detail for the whole budget we haven't heard about tonight, and there's a long way to go.
Right.
But this is your caution right now. This is a warning for all of us to consider
This
what's
is,
ahead,
yes, and I think this is,
right, Harry?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
this is our major pressure point that I see anyways. The rest of it is kind of par for the course in municipal government, the ups and downs, the aid changes, all those things, and we seem to figure it out. But this is a big hit that,
This is a big one.
yep, it was a big one last year and it looks to be a big one this year. You know, $1.8 million increase over 2 years is a lot of money.
It is.
Mr. Chair. I just want to say sort of out loud because I know as things progress, we'll hear from the public a lot, and there often is some misconception that it's like, well, why is the school's number so much bigger that they need? It's like, this is employee-based, obviously, insurance, and we have all the employees. So I just sort of want to say that out loud, like, we're going to have a big, huge number because we're employing the majority of the people in town, and so I'm just sort of throwing that out there now.
It's a real bummer. I was going to bring that up about halfway through.
Too late.
But this includes, this is.
This
all
is
employees.
everything.
Yeah, this is everybody.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's there.
But if
Yeah.
we talk about percentage or ratio at some point,
Yeah.
it is all the schools fall. So
Correct.
Thanks.
Here it is.
as Rebecca just
I
said,
got it.
I think you
Bring
are.
it on. Yeah.
That's why we brought you in tonight to let
Yeah,
you
right.
know
To
it's your fault.
point
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
fingers at us. No, but I think this meeting really helps. It's like we're a united front on the fact that this is a problem for all of us. So I appreciate it.
And I hope people take that away. That this is before we're even talking about the specifics of the Grafton budget and, you know, what that looks like. This is just one massively overlaying factor that goes into this whole process that we are already in the hole on. Could you, I'm trying to ask this politely, without, you know, but the 15% increase for FY27, if we budgeted 18 last year, and we're learning that number probably should have been closer to like 28, 29, why are we budgeting 15% this year and as our minimum? I know you did preface that that's the minimum, instead of like a 20%.
Well, because I believe this is purely subjective, that if we do wind up moving to the GIC, our increase will not need to be as big as if we were in the regular open market. That's why. While I don't think it's a tremendous savings up front, as we talked about already, budget certainty and all that. But generally speaking, having come from being a GIC member for 7 years, it was, while we did have some increases and program changes over the years, they seemed to be less wild than we see in the private market. And so that's kind of why we're carrying a 15%. Oh, I didn't know if that was going to stay up. Sorry about that.
What is that?
I put that there right before the meeting started. And I was like, oh, this will stay. Yep. Anyways, back to the budget. That's the occupancy load. We can't have more than 48 people in here. So that's why we, it's an educated guess based on all the meetings and, you know, Mary and I are at 2 health insurance meetings a month, really involved in the nitty gritty. We meet with our consultant pretty much once a month. We meet with the PEC committee probably half a dozen times a year on an average year. On a change year like this, we're probably more at 8, maybe. We're in this a lot. So I don't want it to sound like we just threw a dart at the board. But we're hedging our bets a little bit that if everybody does agree that this is the way to go into GIC, that we may see a better initial bump than we would if we stayed where we are and had to do the 18% plus the 950 plus the 15%.
So what's being weighed when you decide whether to move to GIC? Like, what's the downside, right? Because there's
Try not to do this in my biased way. I get real mad about it. No. So the downside is that you're at the mercy of the group insurance commission, right? So they make decisions and they impact you, and you're a member community, but you don't really drive that outcome, which is one of the reasons why we went to Mass Strategic Health Group in the first place. We knew that being in the open health insurance market was not doing us a great service because we were getting one respondent to RFPs, and it was always Harvard Pilgrim. And so while, yes, we were in the free market and had a choice, we didn't have that much of a choice. Plus, you were getting really, we had some freedom of plan choices and how to structure things, but not enough to say this is worth more percentage points to stay in the open market. So we moved over to Mass Strategic, and the nice thing about Mass Strategic is we do have a lot of plan design options, right? So we can sit down with staff, we can look at what our health drivers are and make plan changes to try to fit specifically what we see here in Grafton, which may not be the same as it is in Millbury or Westboro or whatever. GIC, you lose a lot of your autonomy, right?
that's fair.
However, I will say that you do pick up a lot more plan choice. So where we're offering, say, 3 plans currently, I think there's 8 in the GIC. So if you are a person that lives in Western Mass, maybe Health New England's a good pickup for you, and that's a better network and cheaper option for you. Maybe you're from Connecticut, Rhode Island, like a lot of our folks are, and there's better plans for those locales. So it's an offset. I think that Grafton was in the GIC from 2014 to 2018, and they jumped out when there were some plan changes that looked like they were coming down the pike that never materialized. And I'm pretty familiar with that because I was also in the GIC and running a town in GIC at that time, so we were pretty entrenched in it then as well. And I'll tell you what I told the Public Employee Commission is that the uncertainty in 2018 that made Grafton jump out of the GIC and go back to the open market, you would kill to have that level of uncertainty in 2025. That is peak stability that we could hope to find in 2025. It's a wild place to be currently. So there's a lot of staff, not reticence, but concern about moving back to that. Well, why did we get out of it if it's so great? And so we've tried to overcome those hurdles in the last couple of years, working with the Public Employee Committee. And for those that don't have all the ins and outs, the Public Employee Committee is made up of a member of all of our unions, as well as representatives from the town and our health insurance broker / consultant. So schools represented, retirees are represented. There's every group. The other reason why we didn't do GIC originally, or we've been struggling with that, is that generally speaking, it was not as advantageous for the retirees as what we had in the free market, which is this Aetna plan.
Right.
However, Aetna has now unbundled Grafton and every community in the Commonwealth, so we've lost that pooling that we had. Mayor, do you remember our Aetna top of mind?
So the total is 332. I believe it's going up $556, a 60% increase effective this January 1st for our retirees.
So it's $900 a month?
It will go from 332 to 556.
Right.
Yes,
So
That's our portion?
that's both town and,
right, that's the whole nut is
Yeah.
60%. So it's a 60% increase for Aetna. We did go out with an RFP and got 0 responses because nobody wants to enter into the retiree market.
How many retirees do we have on the insurance? Approximately, do we know it? Do we have a number?
I thought it was a little over 300. I can verify that.
Yeah, we can pull that data as we
Just
start to
interested.
put this in.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we have I'm not going to put my fingers on it now, but we have that breakdown that shows
Yeah, we
town
do.
school retirees.
Yep.
We had it extrapolated so we could try to see where that is so that I could do what Rebecca does and blame the schools for everything. Yeah, sorry. I'm going to be doing that for the entire budget season, just so you know.
I just,
I'm ready for it.
one more. Andy, one more.
Sorry, good.
So this is not forecasting town revenue, right? We're just kind of looking ahead at issues that we might foresee. So do you have a timeline? Again, understanding that anything we talk about next month or in January is going to not necessarily be
Yeah.
the same as what May looks like, but what's,
No, I think we need to be, and I don't want to speak for Jay, but I think we need to be presenting a pretty hard budget by, middle to end of November.
Yeah, we'll be ready for that.
So we're poised in a lot of different ways to just plug in some very finite last minute numbers to then push it out. So we're pretty close. On the town side, we did our performance-based budgeting review. That's been done for almost 25 days now, 26 days. That's all poised to just get plugged in. So I think we're in good shape. And I don't expect the new growth and the 2.5 number to change at all. I mean, I think
so that
that's going to be what it's going to be.
what
then.
it's going to be.
It probably, yeah. It would be a hard argument to get us above $1 million because I think it's too risky.
Okay. If nobody anybody has any other questions,
have a
we
million,
can
but
open it up
maybe I
for some
should
public
just email
comment
you
if we're agreeable.
Well, and I did want to say, so one, I'm going to send, these are only 7 slides and they're pretty high, but they're already, actually, they might already be on your posting on the website and our posting on the website, so it's already up there for you to look at. Well, our information will start coming out a little bit faster now. And if you have more questions or questions that you might not want to ask here, feel free to reach out. We can set up a meeting with the two of us or however we want to do that. Or put them
Monday.
in an email and we can create a public list that shows the questions and the answers and we can keep the running tab of that. However you want to do it. We're more than accommodating of that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I just came with a whole mess of questions, so I don't have to go through them. They're both on the town and the school side. Maybe I can just hit a couple real quick and then I'll email. But specifically for Jay, just wondering the medically fragile program, how that's going, and did it come out in terms of projected revenue and where you
Yeah,
are?
we were hoping to bring in about 300,000 and we've exceeded that. So we've cleared that foundational bar
Okay.
that we set, thankfully.
And then are you anticipating growth? Like, what does that look like going forward? Or are you kind of maxed out?
We're definitely not maxed out. We'd like to actually double the program at the secondary level, but it's
Okay.
going to depend on placements. We won't really see that probably until the spring.
Okay.
And that's, towards the end of the school year, they're either looking to continue placement, maybe change from residential to, it could be our offering. But that usually takes place in April and May.
Okay. And one thing that came up, I actually went to that MMA Fiscal Summit the day that report was published. And one thing that came up that piqued my curiosity was relative to transportation for individuals with special needs and how we do that.
Yep.
And is that all just kind of subbed out? Is it in-house? Have you thought about doing it, like regionalizing it? Would there be any concern or consideration
We
of that?
definitely, it's a huge cost driver
Yep.
for us. We do some regionalization with the 2 collaboratives that we belong to. So that's gone well. A lot of it's, great majority is private transportation, and it does cost a small fortune.
And in those private ones, it is what it is. Those needs are only met with the private, like you've looked at.
Correct, yeah, we don't really have an alternative at this point
Okay.
beyond the collaboratives.
So we are doing some regionalization. That was one thing that
Oh yeah,
came
we're
up as a
definitely
big,
trying to, and they're struggling mightily.
right.
Even probably the biggest topic we've had with the collaboratives has been transportation.
Yeah.
There's just not enough of it, and the big companies aren't. They struggle to do the big yellow bus transportation, but boy, they've had a really hard time with the smaller vans.
Yeah. Okay. A lot of my population isn't back from COVID due to lack of transportation.
Yeah, it's a big issue.
And then another thing that came up in that was like adult ed programs, just like thinking
Yeah.
of revenue producers. Is that anything that,
We tried a few years ago to mirror. You've I'm sure seen in your mailbox that Aspet After Dark huge program, and they bring in like $1 million.
Yeah.
So we tried to replicate that. It failed miserably.
gotcha.
It was a wonderful effort. Just
Okay.
it just didn't take off.
Okay. And I guess lastly, and then I could just email separate, like, so your enrollment numbers, I know you probably talked about this last year. How are they looking year over year? Do you have any projections on that?
I mean, they've been stable.
Okay.
I worry, I'm sure, as all of you do, just driving around town, seeing so much construction. We have NESDEC, the group that does all of those enrollment projections, coming out this year to give us another. They come out every 5 years, but we've said, just come out and give us a snapshot look at growth. I'm always worried about an explosion of numbers at the elementary schools, and I don't ever want any of us to be caught off guard with need for additional space. But right now, we're looking
been stable.
relatively stable.
Okay. And then just, I guess lastly, I'll just throw out there that, there is like at Doherty, it's on the 30th though, but I was wondering if maybe you would consider putting on your website. I saw it on the Worcester District website. There's listening sessions right now relative to Chapter 70 that the governor is putting on all over the state, so,
I'll be happy to do that.
okay. So I know that there's, if you look at the Worcester, calendar, Worcester Public Schools, it's there. So the 30th is in person, 4:30, 6:30 at Doherty, but then there's virtual ones. on other dates that we might be able to get out. I think that's something that
That's great.
And a
folks
number
should
of us from
be
the school
advocating.
committee are going to the Doherty one.
Oh, great, okay. So pushing that out to other folks too, you know, the more voices in that respect, because that is something that they're looking at, the funding, and that's what we need, right? Okay, thanks.
Mr. Chair? Hi. So I did have a quick question. Personally, for me to understand the future, I have to kind of have a better understanding of the past. Do you have any FY25 closing sheets as far as the amount of money that came in, almost like a P&L type statement, total revenue in versus total revenue out? I know we haven't seen anything like that on the school side as far as the total amounts in versus the total amounts out, but is there anything for the town on that
Yeah, it'll be in the budget book for last year.
for
It's-
last year?
It's literally all
For
year
the
over year.
FY25, the
Yep.
total?
Yep.
For the year that just closed, it's in last year's budget book?
No, you want,
I want the FY25.
Okay. yeah, we can send that out.
Which sounds like it was 200,000. We ended up plus 200,000 at the end of the day, right?
Right, but like on the school side, like, we don't see, we don't have a full picture of the amount that's coming in other than from the town allocation. We don't have, like, we can't see all the revolving funds, everything as a snapshot in a P&L type statement.
And that'll just be our regular VEDAR report of
I
budget to
can find some.
actuals.
Okay, thank you.
I do, before we get into, public QA, I do like the idea of putting together like a budget tab on the website, where we could compile some of those FAQs and, you know, I think that could be a good resource to push out publicly. People are gonna have a lot of these same questions, so I thank you for suggesting.
Just one thing, yeah, just to kind of expand on that, I mean, it would be nice to have, I think what Christie's asking for on the school side and on the town side, so do, I guess, 2024 and 2025 actuals, and then 2025 and 2026 actuals, and then 27 budget, I guess. So we see what we spent in 25 and then 26, and then,
So, yes, that all.
you know, on a P and L, so all revenue sources and
Not
then
a- yeah.
expenses below.
Just to be clear, it's not a P&L. We don't make any profit.
I understand that, I understand that.
So,
But
Right.
revenue versus.
The same format,
expenses,
I
it's
guess.
the-
well, okay. I will put it together for you. I just want to be clear.
I understand.
It all
that
exists.
Do you have access to ClearGov? Cause all of that information is in ClearGov,
Okay.
all actual revenues.
You can tab it out back to 2014. I think.
Yeah, so I just updated
I can put it together in a-
FY25 revenue and expense in ClearGov.
Okay,
I'll,
thank
I'll
you.
put it together too in a.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have it in like like consolidated into a 2 or 3 page. I don't know if that's
can do
on there.
that.
It is, yeah.
We
Just
we,
all revenue sources and then just expenses below, you know, everything from electricity to staff to
yeah. I
whatever,
can.
you know, materials, you
I
know.
don't have the fiscal 25 one. We can just add the column because I gave it out last year as well. So it's just the categories and not the sub.
Okay.
And we can pull that out of VEDAR and do that.
Great, thank you.
Sure thing.
Okay, anybody from the public like to come up and ask a question, make a statement?
They threw asleep.
Okay, take that as a no.
Zoom or?
You have no hands up on Zoom.
Thank you.
Wow, it's been a while. Good evening. My name's Peter Carlson. I live at 42 Old Upton Road. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and the members of the committees and the board. My question goes back to Mr. Evans on your presentation on the budget part of the insurance deficit. From what I'm understanding, that the reason why there was a jump from that 800,000 that you've anticipated as an increase for this year to now a 950,000 deficit was due to the fact that the insurance companies hadn't really gone through all of the claims that the participants or people who are enrolled in our insurance from Grafton have submitted over the past year, 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah, I don't know that I would categorize it as not reviewing or going through it, but we saw a higher utilization than we predicted, right? Which maybe we're saying the same thing, but you know, when you look back at years past claims data, we try to use that as a trend. And Grafton was, you know, 104%, 95% loss ratio, really unfavorable for the open market, but we've just seen a real spike, honestly, in utilization, and a lot of communities have, but also just the cost of healthcare has grown exponentially. But the deficit is, to your point, the deficit is driven by one, probably too conservative of a loss ratio estimate, and then two, some unexpected high claims and some high utilization rates.
Mr. Chair, could I ask a follow-up to that? So it's impossible to really determine because the claims are a variable that you can only predict for so much.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, you're kind of paying it in arrears into the following fiscal year when you renegotiate your contract with your insurance provider.
Right.
So in essence, it's really, from what I'm understanding then, it's really impossible to determine if that amount that we saw this evening is something that is going to be more common, or is that really an outlier?
Right. Yeah, it is very difficult to predict, right? Because if we get 4 employees that come down with some kind of terminal illness, all unrelated to each other, that'll skew your numbers, you know, tremendously. And obviously we don't want that for anybody, and it's hard to predict. I do think that given what we're hearing at all the different levels that we're pursuing health insurance, this is a common thread throughout the municipal market, private sector as well, but that you're going to be looking at everybody's 10 plus. Nobody's, you know, back 5 years ago you could get a 1.8 or a 3 or you'd be mad about a 5, and now you're just not seeing that in the whole market, the whole industry in general.
I understand. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
So just one question, just to follow up with what Peter said. So you're not anticipating a big delta for us to pay at the end of this year for the plan that we're currently in, because right now it's $950, but you think we're gonna have to cut a check at the end for that delta, but you don't think it's gonna be a huge check.
No, I think it's going to be a big check, but I don't think it's going to be $950.
Okay, all right.
So I think it depends on your definition of big.
Yeah, so you'll come up with your best estimate on that. That'll be part of the budget.
That'll be what we're gonna, yeah, as we kind of got these dominoes that need to fall into place. So if the town, and this will come down to a select board vote sometime before December 1st, if we do decide to go into the GIC, then you know, that obviously that drives one set of budget numbers, and if we decide to go a different route, that's going to drive a different set of budget numbers. But as we get closer, you're probably, we're not gonna, I don't know how to say this. I don't think we're gonna have a real start to firm up that deficit number until you get to probably right around May town meeting.
Yeah.
I just don't think you're gonna. I think we're gonna see it bounce along the way.
And that'll come out, that check that we have to write, that comes out of free cash, or what does that come out of?
Yeah.
All right. And with
I mean, you
GIC, we're not gonna have that, right?
Correct.
We're not gonna have,
Right.
it'll, whatever
Right.
we pay, we'll pay.
Yep. And so the idea of the GIC in general is that Grafton has a bad year and we run $1 million deficit. 2 other communities had a great year and they probably paid a little too much into the GIC, but it comes out in the aggregate.
Right.
And vice versa, right? So you get that. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about budget stability is if we went up $800,000 and we'd all be mad about going up $800,000, but that would be it. That they don't, you know, it may, as
They
Peter
don't come
brought
back
up,
with
that
more
may
money.
come up and get us in the next year's, you know,
Nice.
look at.
Something, then come
But-
back, I need some more money.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks,
Yeah.
Evan.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Anybody else?
Hi, Dan Kusher, 79 Keith Hill Road. So when you look at those, the new growth, the 2.5% numbers, you have like about, I think it was like 2.4 million combined in those.
Yep.
And then we're looking at a little over 1 million of that going straight into the insurance increase. So we're looking at like less than 1.4 million left for the whole town. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, we're going to have more details coming in, this November budget, but it's going to be either an override or extreme cuts, right? Like, that's what we're looking at. Like, that you can say that today. You don't need more details. We already know it. All right. I just want to make sure somebody said that. Thanks.
Anybody else? Going once, going twice?
I just to piggyback on that, I mean, if you look in the last 2 to 3 years, overrides have passed at about a rate of about 50%. So I think that it's imperative that, just like last year, that these committees, including finance, I don't know if TRICOM is going to happen or if that's just a done deal, but need to really whittle this down. And what I'm focusing on is still looking at how are we reducing expenses and how are we bolstering revenue, so that I can go out and say to people, I mean, I just got an email from a gentleman the other day who's elderly. I think he just sent it to me personally, and about the struggles that he's having currently with taxes, right? So just throwing that out there, I guess.
Mr. Hoffman.
So I guess I'll piggyback on that a little bit too. I think you guys did a great job last year coming up with options and just looking at every possible way to make the budget work. I think we'll all expect to do that this year. One of the things that I struggled with a little bit last year was that people kept asking me, are we going to do an override this year? And I kept feeling like I didn't have enough information. And part of that was because we like to have some kind of number to roll out and some kind of, better idea than what we had last year. So this isn't something that we need to decide tonight necessarily, but I did want to sort of bring up the idea that it's looking like we're going to need an override or serious service cuts, or both. And if we're going to do the override, we need time. We need time to message it and to figure out what all the specific numbers are going to be, to do whatever we're going to do to advertise and for people to organize to get people out to vote. So I guess, I just want to challenge this whole group to think about in the coming weeks and months. We may find ourselves in a situation where we don't have all the information and we still should make a decision. And I'm not going to sort of make people's minds up tonight one way or the other, but I think we may very well be in a situation where we don't have all the information, similar to where we were last year, and we kept waiting for that last bit of information, and my sort of experience with it never really kind of got there until it felt like by the time we kind of had all that, it was almost too late to really propose one even, because we didn't have enough time. So I'm glad we're starting this early. And I hope that as this kind of plays out, that some of those numbers come in a little bit more quickly, but also that we have that timeline in mind, and the clock doesn't run out on, the time that we need if we're gonna go for an override to prepare the town for it. So, that's all I want to say.
Andy, to build on that, I think we all also have to remember that we already did cutting and we're bare bones, right? So there isn't a cushion. So that decision is going to have to come relatively quickly. We've used cash that we had used reserves. We've done a lot of things. Absolutely, to Anne Marie's point, there is looking at other ways to cut costs and raise revenue, but the cushion is gone. So that decision is going to have to come quickly. That's all.
So on that, when do you think we can expect the information from the school and the town side on as far as the actuals for the last 2 years and what we're projecting for this year? Because that would be helpful. I think we need that information to see what we're spending money on. You know what I mean? And where the world else money's going.
Tomorrow?
Not the actual,
Well,
not
yeah,
what we're projecting.
tomorrow.
No, I can
So-
go
9 o'clock.
So,
We're just pulling it all nighter.
well,
Literally.
everything 25 and back, we can literally give you tomorrow. Because it already exists, it's just us formatting it. What you're looking at as far as forecast and final budget for 27, I think that's the end of November, middle to end of November, depending on if everything aligns. Is
Yeah.
about as good as we can do for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And that should give you, December and into January to probably make a decision. Even though you will have imperfect data
Yeah.
because we
Well, the
don't know
big
what
stuff,
state's
like,
gonna do.
projections for insurance,
Yep.
for payroll, right? Employees, for
Yeah.
fuel,
Yeah, we're-
for
we're-
all that big stuff,
Yeah, we have a lot of that already
Yeah.
plugged in. I don't want to give out a forecast that's just not finalized. So we'll have that, but we will push that out between the second meeting that you guys have in you folks have in November, between then and the end of November.
Right. I mean, to Matt's point, we do want information early, but we want to make sure that it's accurate information. So
Right.
we don't want to rush and rush you guys and really feeling comfortable with what you're giving us, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the same. Even without, I think echoing Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Kusher's point that even without these defined numbers, we know the exercise that we had to embark on last budget season and kind of the hoops we had to jump through to close that $800,000 gap, and we made it, and it was tight. I don't think anybody would disagree with that assessment. I don't know how we just suddenly eat $1 million more this year. It really doesn't seem possible or tenable, regardless of how those numbers come in. So I do think it's necessary to caution the public about this and to a fair degree. I think if we could, I know. When we discuss cuts, they're not always a set in stone thing. There's flexibility and it's dependent upon the way things end up playing out. But I think a little bit more of a concrete idea around what those cuts end up looking like, both on the municipal side and on the school side. Because ultimately that I think ends up becoming part of the argument. People really need to see. It's a this or that, and what those cuts are going to be to really understand that, in my opinion at this point anyways, they seem like they're going to be extensive if we're not able to, figure out a way to close this gap substantially. So, I appreciate everybody coming together tonight. I'm wondering if, based on the information that we got tonight, maybe we talk about the first week of December doing another joint meeting then. I appreciate the finance committee members that came out tonight. We in laying this out, I just want to be upfront, felt like the information would be very preliminary and it felt a little premature to involve the finance committee, but at that time maybe we can make it the full TRICOM and have everybody in here again, and continue to the discussion that we started tonight. Okay. Any final comments, questions, closing thoughts that anybody wants to share before we adjourn? Okay. I think we take a motion, please.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.